There is a version of American manufacturing that most people have not seen yet. Nitin Uchil has been building it for 5 years, bootstrapped out of Chicago inside two of the country's leading innovation centers. As the founder and CEO of Numorpho Cybernetic Systems, he is creating what he calls a cyber-physical operating system for advanced manufacturing, combining digital twins, AR, VR, and smart automation to close a gap that 30 years of expertise has taught him nobody else is going to close. Today, he's sitting with me, and we are getting into how it started, what it's becoming, and what it means for the future of American industry. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Inner Access. Today, I'm here with Nitin, and he's going to be telling us a little bit more about Numorpho Cybernetic Systems. Nitin, thank you so much for making the time today and for sharing all your insights and about what you're working on. We want to get started with a little bit of background. So would you mind sharing a bit about how you got started and why you chose the industry that you're in?
Sure. First of all, thank you for inviting me. This is my first ever podcast. So thank you.
Well, we feel honored.
So my background is in engineering, and I've been, my undergrad was in civil engineering. I came to the United States in 1985 to do a master's from Oklahoma, where we did a lot of work with the space research centers. I built the entire solar panel structure for the International Space Station.
Wow.
Or helped build it, not build it. Yeah, we don't go in space and kind of build out things, right? So that thesis kind of led me into a career in aerospace engineering. I worked in LA, worked for companies that built the stealth bomber, the space shuttle program, and was very successful there. But that industry kind of collapsed because the Cold War ended. So moved to New York and worked for a company that was also into automotive engineering. So that's where I worked with Mercedes, BMW, Audi, some of the more exotic luxury brands, and created a thesis for simulation and design in engineering. So that began my career in high-tech engineering. And then when the internet took over in 1996, I morphed it to also have data engineering as the basis. So I morphed into building data structures that could be elevated on websites. Attribute engineering could be managed with expert systems, built a lot of tool sets where attribute engineering became a composite understanding of what the build of the car should be. So I did that for Ford Motor Company, for General Motors, moved from New York to Detroit to do that.
Wow. How you've mentioned working for some very prominent industry and companies. What do you feel stands out to you with what you're building right now in terms of data? The way that they collected data and the way that they use data?
Yeah, so what stands out is the amount of expertise people have that needs to be aggregated together and summarized and attributed and predictive analytics done on those things, be it for benchmarking, be it to build best-in-class vehicles, be it in terms of using AI and machine learning that we do now. So all that is attribution of experts of real data that comes into play. How do you cleanse data? How do you sanitize data? All these are very important factors that AI will just alleviate or have problems if you have that data.
Right, and that's very important. A lot of people feel like AI is just going to magically fix everything, and what you're feeding into the AI matters. So your data absolutely needs to be cleaned because that's going to determine the output that you get.
That's right.
So how did you end up in Chicago?
So again, my career has been a series of pivots. So my first pivot was when the Cold War ended. My second pivot was when the dot-com bust ended. So I moved to Chicago, joined a consulting company based out of Chicago that was in the brand elevation business, strategy, digital transformation, building e-commerce sites. So we did that from 2006 to 2012. We IPO'd in the stock market, And then Accenture got interested and bought us for $400 million. And I was principal director at Accenture from 2013 to 2020 when another pivot, the COVID happened.
Right.
So at Accenture, I was part of their digital transformation team. It was called Accenture Interacting, and the goal there was to elevate companies to the digital era, from brick and mortar to all online presence, be it for marketing, be it for commerce, or be it for understanding what the future of the company should be by aggregating sources from all over the world. So we looked at translations, globalization, localization, understanding the theme for B2B, B2C, and B2G commerce.
Do you feel like having that experience was what made you decide to work on the project that you're working on now?
Yes, the formation of Numorpho is basically to merge engineering, technology, and new emergent ways of doing things like AI, quantum, and all that. So the goal of Numorpho is basically a synthesis of different streams of knowledge that come together. And when I present my digital twine or the mantra M5, it will be very apparent as to why and how we are using new technologies to surface information.
I'm excited for you guys to see that. I've had some experience with Nitin's project already, and my mind was blown. It is so impressive, and the way that it helps other businesses alone stands out for me. Speaking of other businesses, and you've had a wealth of experience. You're so smart, very intelligent, and the experience matches that as well. There are so many people trying to climb, trying to build, trying to make their own space in technology right now, which is a very growing field in so many different directions. What advice do you have for someone who is up and coming, whether it is a seasoned professional who is trying to branch out on their own, or a young person, coming out of college, trying to decide where do I fit in the world of technology? What advice would you have for them in determining what career path, and maybe something a little bit more specific about starting your own business in tech?
Hard work and grit, I think, is very important. Of course, you should have the tenacity to wither. Like I've been bootstrapping my company for 5 years, so you have to understand that things take time to kind of evolve and all that. From youngsters' perspective, what we also do is have internship programs. Every year we have high school kids join us, and I tell them the art of the possible. What does engineering, what does space technology mean? And in the couple of internships that we've had, high school kids have built James Webb Space Telescopes, the Lucy spacecraft, and the team that is here this month is building lunar habitation modules. So understanding the art of the possible is what we train. So.
That is great advice, and I would add to that, not being afraid to question things, and don't feel bad if you're not sure. Every stage of life, there comes uncertainty. It's not determined by your age or where you are in location. As you grow, you continue to learn about new things that might interest you. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Use your network. Tap into those people like Nitin who has experience, who has the knowledge, the insight to give you a guiding hand that will help you maybe overcome a few hurdles a little bit faster. So I am excited for Nitin to jump into his presentation today, and I'm excited for you guys to see what he's been working on.
Hi, my name is Nitin Uchil. I'm the founder and CEO of Numorpho Cybernetic Systems. And what I'd like to show you is what we're doing in terms of digital technologies and merging AI in something we call Everything Connected as a fabric that we're building for enterprise operations. So my company is Numorpho Cybernetics, and we've created a very diligent website that goes through the process of understanding what our purpose is, what our intentions are, and what are the tenets that we follow, and what use cases that we are doing to connect the dots between different systems and provide the basis for the next generation of manufacturing, infrastructure build, and other process engineering professionals. In doing so, what we've done is we built a platform called the Digital Twine. The Digital Twine is basically a synthesized knowledge graph database that provides for information to be surfaced based on different domain expertise that we have. For example, if I go into the Digital Twine, it basically has a knowledge corpus of 572 artifacts that have been curated and stored in a knowledge base using LLM as the backbase to surface this information based on key templates that we use for building the knowledge framework, for building what we call hypergraphs that are process related, looking at partnership models, looking at how innovation happens. We have an innovation canvas that does that. And the next three are for agentic interactions. What do skills mean? The archetype lens, the agentic coworker, and the power canvas for AI interactions, and the skills kernel for agentic. And then when it comes to merger and acquisitions, how do we look at collaborations and acquisitions to form the basis for next generation larger companies? So these are the different templates that we've used. And when I click on the dashboard, it basically shows you all the details of how we are doing this. Each one of the knowledge frameworks has been properly cataloged and understood. Folio payloads have been created for the different entities, and we have a total of 572 folios that we've created that can be very quickly searched based on whether you're looking at aerospace and defense for either as a commercial airliner. All the different commercial airplanes have been cataloged in there. From a corporation perspective, what the Boeing company was, how mergers and acquisitions happened in aerospace, and what military aircrafts were built. This was part of my background in doing aerospace and defense at the start of my career that we have put in here. For example, if I go into one of my favorite military aircrafts, the B-2 Spirit, it brings up the details of what was done for that program and an entire detail of the write-up of the things. And a canvas that shows you the knowledge graph of all the entities, all the connected dots for building out the project in different stages, the genesis, the spirit, and the final things. And we're still building out newer B-2 bombers to help out with defense. Yeah. So what I want to show you next is how we have created this digital twine framework and its different composites based on the different domain entities that we've been working with. For example, I already showed you aerospace and defense. If I go down to manufacturing, you'll see it have different subtypes in here. Historical perspective, all the different industrial revolution phases that we've gone through is indicated in here in a very informatic graph perspective. This basically shows you how we've gone through the different stages of steam and electricity power assembly line and the cyber digital interfaces, and how we are building an intelligent sovereign mesh today on interacting with AI and using physical AI as a basis for cobotic and other types of interactions. And very similarly, there is description in here, and the canvas basically shows you the entire knowledge graph of the revolution, industrial revolution, the steam genesis, the urbanization surge, the capital infrastructure that's needed, the business globalization that was part of the industrial revolution, the way of doing CAD, CAM, and CAE for precision quality, and how that evolved, and how we are building cyber physical systems. So that's the historical perspective. When you look at operations, we have different types of operations in here that are already cataloged. Under processes, we have casting and forging, the industrial metaverse. Industrial metaverse is interesting because this is where basically the physical and the digital converge from an augmented reality perspective, from a data automation, annotation perspective. How do we look at tagging for the new, right? When people are using such newer systems, what are the back base for it? So that's from a process perspective. Then all the different protocols for integration, the Modbus, MQTT, and the OPC UA architecture, all of these have been properly cataloged so that when an initiative comes along, you can basically synthesize these multiple different knowledge graphs and create what I call a hypergraph to do your project much quicker. So that is manufacturing. And then we have also done things in life sciences. For example, for healthcare, we have created different folios for managing different types of things. For example, the CCP rural model is where physicians work with rural communities and have multifaceted expertise. Similar to what happens in the MASH program. Using the Mobile Army Surgical Hospital as the basis, the CCP rural model enables doctors to be certified in multiple expertise to help out rural communities. So this is a kind of a model that helps those type of physicians contribute by adding to what is needed from a rural perspective. So that's life sciences. And then I also have things for, let's say, playbooks for different types of things. Like at MHub, our goal is hard tech engineering. And the hard tech engineering goes through 3 phases: discover, implement, and launch. And the entire playbook has been knowledge graph has been created out of that allows innovators or innovation to happen at speed. What the user needs are, what the IP landscape is, what the bill of materials estimations are, and the techno-economic model, so that upfront innovators get a feel of what to do and what not to do while building out their thesis for prototypes. And then I have other things that we have been recently doing, like, for example, in space exploration, understanding what it takes to build a moon base. So this is where interns are working on this problem, where they're building a lunar habitation foundation model, looking at surface system architecture, looking at building an industrial base on the moon. How do you train people to work with things on the moon? And what lunar operations are to be conducted, like even the aspiration of being on the moon, which is the closest proximity object in space, right? So, and then even commercializing, what does it mean to have hotels on the moon? So what they've done is they've looked at all different types of understanding of what is needed for space exploration by setting up a moon base. And then more recently, we've been working with a consortium of supply chain experts, 82 companies, and this has been really good to look at diversity in terms of expertise, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 logistics providers joining together to build out initiatives so that there is a good handshake as the product moves from point A to point B to point C. And what we've done with this is also create what I call wikigraphs to indicate such interactions using a graphical module that is node edge based. And this is very recent in the AI community where people are going more into graphical renderings rather than just LLM talks. So the backbone behind what Numorpho's engine is all about is basically combining three large models together: large language models, large world models, and large graphical models like this. As an example, we have this for the consortium that we're building, where we're looking at strategy and execution as two pillars. And within those pillars are sub-pillars that have the vision, the organization foundation, the financing, capital architecture, the product development that is needed. So all these are pillars that the consortium companies have certain expertise in. And simply by picking on the company right there, for example, if I were to pick my company, Numorpho Cybernetic Systems, it'll show you those pillars that Numorpho Cybernetic is capable of doing, like total alignment, integrated business planning, business development, market, and marketing sales order. Right? So these are expertise that my company provides. If I were to add the expertise of another company in there, you'll see that expand into things. So when I go back here, I can basically look at it from a pillar perspective, what are the different companies that have those capabilities, and very quickly come up to speed with how initiatives can be collaborated on, and so on and so forth. So we have wiki graphs, we have what I call projects that have different themes like agentic AI landscape. So this is kind of a graphical representation. I can push nodes and see how the interactions happen in a kinetic way. That's the agentic AI landscape. Then agentic control plane that has governance and archetypes. Archetypes are skills metrics, and governance is the should conditions of building a constitution for resilient AI. And then we have, let's say, Chicago's future. So how did Chicago kind of evolve from after the fire, right? Everything is codified in here. The plan of Chicago, how it got rejigged, how the original plan of Chicago took into place. So if I were to look at what happened in Chicago, the plan of Chicago, it brings out the knowledge graph for the plan of Chicago that was put in place in 1909 by an architect called Daniel Burnham. The basis for the Chicago's development was to improve the lakefront, to look at regional highway systems, the railway terminal, the outer parks and boulevards, the systematic street arrangements, that including the diagonal roads, and then the cultural center that was never built. So this was the basis for the plan, and the details of the plan are in here. And then the canvas basically tells you the story as a graph, how they looked at European models initially, looked at their theme, make no little plans. The people who provided the money for it, the commercial charter club and other things like what is the projection of the population, the surveying of the city, the master plan creation, everything is cataloged in here based on the original plan. Then I wanted to see how I could use this as a planning tool by taking the original plan and rejigging it by looking at digital twins and other things. So here is the new plan with the digital twin as the basis. And again, it has its own canvas that shows you the progression that could be possible for this. And then, since Chicago is made up of good architects, I asked my tool what would happen if I were to invite Frank Lloyd Wright and Jenny Gang to be part of building the new Chicago. And this is what it came out with, a very organic structure based on Frank Lloyd Wright's plan, and Jenny Gang's multifaceted construction, which has hotels, which has housing and office space all conjoined in one building, right? So, and the plan has a canvas again that details out all the things there. So this has been a kind of quite an adventure. We are also putting in science and math, and engineering and technology. What does chemistry mean? What does physics mean? All of them have been codified in the tool, so that when you have an initiative, an aggregation of different graphs would be affected to build out initiatives. So this, I think, has never been done in the realm of engineering before, and what we're doing is merging engineering and AI together. So what we are doing is basically building the future for agentic interactions. For the time being, we have cataloged a lot of domains as knowledge graphs, as static knowledge graphs that could be repurposed to be dynamically fused together and built on. But the future of this is to build out agentic interactions using a Kanban type methodology to make, manage, move, market, and maintain solutions or products or any initiative, right? So this is from a smart helmet perspective. What we've done is actually build out 3D printed smart helmets that fold and are built out of carbon fiber and 3D printed. They're also smart in the sense that they have sensors embedded in them. We are actually partnering with Arduino, which is now part of Qualcomm, to build out a detailed situational awareness, smart monitoring capability in here. And what I've done here is catalog the entire project from its blueprinting stage. For example, what is the safety market research that we did? What is the hardware architecture for the sensors? What is the gated engineering design philosophy that we follow? What is the project charter? What is the risk assessment? So we're building these Kanban boards from a blueprinting, from a implementation, and from a operating perspective. So what this is now is activating or actualizing or making it actionable, the knowledge graphs that we've been building in the Backbase. This is a real project, and this is hybrid because it's got both physical and digital implications. In other projects, we have built out the Revolution e-bike, for example, that has the whole details of building a foldable e-bike. And similarly, we do market research, we do the engineering synthesis, the concept gates, and all of them have been cataloged in Kanban boards like this for the implementation and for the operating. And then just from a digital portion, we're looking at building a Guardian platform, a platform that understands situational awareness for urban safety, for example. So in here, similarly, we have a set built out for blueprinting, now for the vision, the architecture, and the concept gates, the implementation, and the details of operating. So what this allows you to do is to synthesize or fuse together multiple different knowledge graphs to make a project actionable or feasible, and very quickly come up with collaboration models and do things that are impossible today with the myriad of tools that you have, right? So I want to conclude by saying that we've talked about what I've done as Numorpho Cybernetic Systems, how we can convert my story to our story, how we can use what we've done here for the global benefit of the population, for advancing our civilization into the future using robust, reliable AI, and that is responsible and helps humanity's progress. So what we are doing now is basically building a front end role-based access for our application, and it's already done using Fable 5 over the weekend. So there is a sign-in feature where I can log in as administrator or user or developer or any other role, and based on the role I'll be able to see appropriately those type of artifacts or those type of components that are based on the background of the user. I can look at access logs because it's very important to see how the tools are being used, so that there are checks and balances in place for people using them. So we have included that in access logs also. So this is a complete application now that is ready for prime time, and I want us to be looking at this as a future model for not only language type conversations, using large language models, but also large world models and large graphical models. That's the basis for Numorpho's existence. So that is my story. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you, Nitin, again for all the insight and for sharing about your amazing project. I hope you guys stop by MHub. If you see Nitin, please say hi. Reach out to him on LinkedIn. Let him know that you're here, you're interested, even if it's just to learn. He's always willing to help, to guide, and support. Thank you guys also for always supporting Inner Access, and we look forward to what's next.